Peach, Ni, San, Shi, Tomo Arigato, Mitsubishi, Tsunami, Gurugameshi, Honda, Anta, Baka, Kawaii, Konnichiwa, Sensei, Senpai, I pray you'll notice me, 'cause I'm a righteous guy who loves my Japanese enemies. Yokozuna, Sakura, Ninja, Gaiden, Nipponichi, Shigeru, Miyamoto, Tojo, Ohio, Kamikaze, Sumo, Sushi, Zan, Kokuna, Tenchi no Yoni, 'cause we're two gaijin besties who love Japanese enemies.
Welcome to the Pleeb the Weeb, the show where we talk about animes and you decide which one of us is the plebe and which one's the weeb. In this show, we just watched the animated film Kimi no Nawa.
Or if you're not a fucking geek, your name.
確かなことが一つだけある。私たちは会えば絶対すぐにわかる。
言おうと思ったんだ。お前が世界のどこにいても必ず会いに行くって。
あなたは誰？
お前は誰だ？君の名は。
So, Jesse, why don't you start us off? What did you think of this film?
This was a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. It was the greatest film I've ever seen in my life. The end. Show's over.
I thought it was okay.
Listen to this fucking guy already. I'm gonna tear this whole fucking place down.
So this is the latest film from Makoto Shinkai, a director who started in the early 2000s, has made a name for himself. This film is getting crazy good reviews, high scores, selling out the fucking theaters in Japan, ridiculously good shit. And since your opinion seems to fall in line with the public consensus on this film, what was so good about it?
Well, it's a very tropey story out of the gate. It's the Freaky Friday body switch story, which I love no matter who's doing it or no matter how it's done. You know, I'm a big fan of tropey stories.
Right.
I don't see anything inherently bad about them. I see something inherently good about them. I want to see everything I've seen before, but in a million different ways. I want to see how every possible personality type can ever deal with the exact same shit happening over and over again. And this was it was just a typical body switch thing at first, but it was really well done in that sense. Right out of the gate, it immediately grabbed me. You know, it had all these really cool little details, instead of totally freaking out, both characters who were body switching seemed to gel with it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. They seemed to get the hang of it. They came up with a system of communicating with each other, which was fucking cool. And there was all these little things that you don't normally see in these kind of movies, these little touches, how when she's in his body, she has a different accent, and there was that part where she didn't know whether to say watashi or ora or whatever. Yeah, that was the coolest. Don't fucking correct me! I know Japanese better than anyone! I invented Japanese! Japanese wouldn't exist without me. And that was my one problem I had with the movie, is that the entire movie was in Japanese for some ungodly, disgusting reason. I don't know what weird nip got their hands on it in editing and just butchered it. Just came their hideous squiggle sticks language all over it. There were so many squiggle sticks all over the screen.
Oh, you mean because of the Chinese subtitles that were also
Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees, look at these, who gives a shit? It's all the same, it's all trash. It's that great Miyazaki quote, Japanese is nothing but trash. Japan was a mistake. We need 10 more Hiroshimas. I'm pretty sure that's what the guy said. And he's a genius, so who should argue with him?
Yeah, we watched this, so this movie's still in theaters in Japan, so there is no, Blu-ray release out. There's a screener, someone leaked the screener that you get for, review copies or whatever online, and so we watched a version. It didn't look too bad. It definitely did not live up to the incredible artwork of this film, which, if you know anything about Makoto Shinkai's films, they all have utterly gorgeous backgrounds and stuff. The quality of this rip does not quite do justice to those, so if you care about the full visual splendor of a movie and not having the phrase, this is not for wide distribution, this, go across the screen every 10 minutes.
Yeah, I thought that was a strange directorial decision. That every couple of scenes
and also Chinese
said
subtitles and watermarks all over the screen and stuff, but I mean, I don't know. The movie shined through all that. I wasn't too distracted by it. But then I'm not too easily distracted by those kinds of things anyways. Did any of that bother you too much? Other than the fact that you had to read subtitles?
There was one part where they're texting each other, but they're also narrating. So I'm having to read 2 sets of subtitles at the same time. And that got a little difficult.
Not hard for me. But,
quit the show. You can get some other fucking weeaboo guy, Weeaboo Jones over there.
Well, no one knows which one of us is the plebe and which one's the weeb.
And pointing at Ben, Weeaboo Jones, apparently.
So, all right, this movie. I mean, you said you like to see every kind of character type interact with the same tropes, and I think that's I find that interesting. I think that's a cool way to put it, and I do think this film did that well. But I would say that I don't know what the personalities of these characters necessarily are, other than just like
they're
boy
both just
and
cool
girl.
shit. They're both just normal, regular, cool as shit dudes.
The girl is a shrine maiden. She lives in a small town in the middle of nowhere. And she
that's
wants
what
to live
annoys
in the
me
big
about
city.
these kind of movies, these body switch movies.
Right.
Because I daydream about body switching all the time. Like it's literally my dream to wake up in someone else's body and, handle it better than people usually handle it in movies and TV. And meet the person and devise a set of communication like they did in this movie and form this amazing lifelong bond. The kind of bond that you could never possibly have with anyone else. It's a totally unique thing. I think about it all the time. It's my one dream in this world is to someday body switch with someone, preferably a beautiful lady. Not the
12, 11, 10, 9,
No,
If it was me.
it's the bond. It's the bond between two people.
Start. 2, 1, boost ignition, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the space station, paving the way for future missions beyond. Well played, Apple. Roger, Kelly.
Is a Japanese colloquialism which comes from a short Indo-wide narration.
For the most part in Japanese, anime is synonymous with animation of any kind.
Japanese colloquialism.
Well, as I was saying before everything was destroyed forever, what the hell was I saying? It's a cool. The point is, I think about body switching with hot chicks and touching my own vagina all the time. And that's what this movie was. But, I appreciated that instead of flipping out and acting like a bunch of rubes like they do in every movie of this type, they seem to really roll with it quite well.
Yeah.
And it was cool.
Or at least the
A
part
new
where
take on it.
the part where they flip out was not shown, more like.
That's true.
And there's a genius, this is really early in the film. We first see the girl wake up and she grabs her own tits and she's like, "What's going on with my body?" And then it just cuts to
that grabbing of her tits was recontextualized over and over again throughout the movie, depending on how the characters had changed. And that was the coolest thing ever. This dumb grabbing my own tits joke that's in every body switch movie became a part of the character arc.
Yeah. But the way it does it is that it shows that scene, but then it immediately cuts to the next day and the girl is she's in her own body and she just has no idea that someone else was in her body yesterday, and she's just like, "What the fuck are you people talking about?" Everyone's saying you were acting really weird yesterday, and you get 20 straight minutes of just her everyday life, and all you know about the body switching is that it happened, but she doesn't realize it. Everyone else does, but they're not hammering on about what she was like. People just keep telling her she was weird, and meanwhile you're just seeing her everyday life. And I thought that's the most clever thing about this movie to me, is just the way it started off, that the whole day of the guy being in her body and freaking out, not knowing what to do, we didn't have to watch it. We know it happened, but so I feel this movie's smart about it knows you've seen this trope before.
Yeah.
It wants to focus on the interesting
that whole
part.
boob-touching gimmick in this movie was handled so uniquely and so creatively and so coolly. Because when you wait, your mustache is freaking me out. Because
our cameraman put on a mustache out of nowhere. This huge pirate mustache all of a sudden.
Because you wake up in a girl's body, and of course you're gonna have that moment where you flop around your titties and twiddle your bean for a little bit. You okay there, buddy?
Twiddle your bean.
Do the old 5-knuckle shuffle.
Cameraman, can you grab me another beer? They're not in here. They're in Victor's room.
But they did that, but they gave it a purpose. Because in the beginning, he has that scene where he's touching his own boobies. He's like, I got boobies. That's really cool. Then a little bit later in the movie, after they start getting to know each other and, like, learning to respect each other's bodies and, like, sort of treating it like I'm a guest in this person's body, then he wakes up and he goes to touch his boobs. He's like, I probably shouldn't. Not so respectful.
Yeah. Don't say what happens next.
I'm not going to...
Yeah, at some point we will jump into spoilers and we'll put a timestamp. But for now, I want to point out, just because this was in my mind as I was watching this movie, that you recently watched The Girl Who Leapt Through Time.
And this was very
similar.
They're very much reminded
Very
me
much
of it,
along the same lines. A lot of facial expressions were similar and stuff, and just the way the characters act as kind of normal kids. Because there was an article I read where someone... It's not a twisty top, Nate. Just bring it to me. But there's an article I had read that was like saying that this movie symbolized the end of the otaku era because it was a big successful movie that normies were watching, and apparently it's been a big date movie, which seems about right. But I was like, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time was already like a normie movie that anyone would watch. That came out in 2007. Like this movie very much feels in line with the other films by this director and with the films.
You know what I always say?
That director.
Norminess is next to godliness.
Sometimes it can be, but I just don't think this. I thought it was funny that I had heard that, like, oh yeah, this is the end of the otaku era. But I was like, otaku would love this movie too, because okay, even if we assume the worst about otaku, that they really just want to watch fan service shows, one of the first shots in this movie is like a really hot 14-year-old girl looking down her own shirt, which is shown in this like really detailed, sexy shot.
Oh yeah, he
starts
it paused
grabbing
for a good 40 minutes. He wouldn't let us get past it,
implying that you weren't like, oh yeah,
I'm above that kind of thing.
No,
I am an actual
we
normie
both
and proud of
look.
it.
We were sitting there just for like 10 minutes at the start of this movie.
Well, my dick always looks like that, so I wouldn't know the difference.
But yeah, the first scene is like a girl grabbing her own tits. I was like, whatever, otaku will enjoy this. Otaku like sad, meaningful movies that like tug at your heartstrings and shit. We're not monsters.
Au contraire, I beg to differ.
So, okay, do you have anything else you want to talk about the early part before we have to jump into spoiler talk?
No, it was cool shit.
Well, I was hoping you would keep going while I cracked this beer open.
No, you have to do it in awkward silence. Yeah, that's your punishment for being an alcoholic.
Okay, so we're going to talk about spoilers now. If you don't want to be spoiled for this film, obviously he thinks it a 10 out of 10. I think it's worth watching, so if you don't want to be spoiled, and there are some big twists in this movie, so we will be spoiling big twists. Skip to the time code on screen if you just want to see our closing thoughts on the film. So, spoiler talk.
So, I'm watching this movie for the first 30, 45 minutes, and it's that body switch formula.
I'd say hour. First hour. No, yeah, maybe you're right. 40 minutes. We'll see.
And it's that body switch formula, and I'm like, yeah. But then all of a sudden, this huge curveball comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, yeah!
So the big spoiler is that the first half of the film is just these two switching bodies, and there's a great moment. I think probably my favorite moment in the film is when the montage starts, because both characters, like the whole opening part is very slow. We see like one character's life very slowly, then we see the next ones, then we see them kind of realize they're switching bodies, and then each of them like has a moment where they realize what's happening, and then it just smash cuts to this awesome music, like this kickin' tune, and then it just jumps into a montage of like both of them living one another's lives, and the way that's handled is just really cool. And then after that montage, it winds down a bit. The characters are like about to hit this point in their lives, and then a comet wipes out the town the girl lives in, and the guy turns out to have been teleporting 3 years back in time when he was in her life.
Oh my god!
あの日星が降った日それはまるで
まるで夢の景色のように美しい眺めだった。
So the two of them had just assumed that they were on the same clock. Now this does raise the question of how they didn't notice the year stamp in each other's phones and they were checking the time.
Who gives a shit? It's my
checking the
two
date all the time.
favorite things. Dumb, tropey body switch bullshit and dumb, tropey time travel bullshit. The two greatest storytelling devices in the history of fiction. Dating back to William Shakespeare's classic film Back to the Future.
Okay. I inhaled beer. If you're the kind of person who's bothered by plot holes, don't watch this movie. It won't work for you. It's not a logical movie. It's an emotional.
I'd like to get in her plot hole, if you know what I mean.
I would definitely say this movie is about the emotions and the the feelings of the characters. It's not about time travel. If you think about the time travel too hard, you'll break it in 72 ways immediately.
I'd like to break her in 72 ways.
And some people might even have this movie ruined. Like, maybe you watched it and didn't think about it, because I didn't think about that until just now, that they could have looked at the date on each other's phones. They should have seen the year. But whatever. It turns out it's a time travel movie. And so the main guy starts trying to figure out what the fuck happened, because the city that he's been, living in, essentially, every other day for, like, however long, probably a month, has been wiped off the face of the earth 3 years ago. And that's where it gets really dramatic and sort of sad. And then he goes into a cave and drinks sake made out of her spit has an epic hallucination where he like learns her whole life story. And that was awesome.
I'd like to hallucinate and sip her spit out of a sake. You know what I mean?
I don't think I do. But the scene where he hallucinates is like totally different art style. I'm thinking hand-drawn. It looked awesome.
Yeah.
It looked super badass, and it was really emotional. And I love that when it comes out of that and it like cuts back to reality, it immediately is a comedy scene. Like, it followed up the most dramatic scene in the movie with like straight up, because it was like reiterating the boob touching joke, but in a new way.
Yeah.
It was really funny. And it continued to be funny for a little while.
And then it turns into, trying to save the whole town with these time traveling powers. Which really, if it were me, I wouldn't give a shit about the town. I would just get my biddy the hell out of there. Yeah. Is biddy a word that people still say? I would just get that fine Asian puss out of that town, somewhere safe, in a bunker. Her and her fucking grandma and her sister, I guess, too. But I wouldn't give a shit about the town. Let them all fucking die. Who cares?
So her dad was an asshole. He can...
Her dad was an asshole. Fuck that guy. He's the worst guy.
Yeah.
I hope he gets hit with 2 meteors. I would go back in time to make sure he got hit with the meteor and nobody else.
So, okay. How did you feel about that scene? Because, like, the whole saving the town scene, I thought went on too long. Like, I felt like I got it. Like, okay, yeah, we're going to save the town. But then that's, like, its whole own, 30...
that's basically what I was saying, but less stupidly put.
Yeah, well...
The saving the town is less interesting to me than them just saving each other.
Right. And, like, it's just that it goes on for so long. And the thing is, I feel this way about every Japanese movie I've ever seen. I've never seen a Japanese movie I didn't think dragged too long in the climax. I mean, I feel that way about a lot of American movies too, but like in Japanese movies there's this moment where you feel like, okay, I know how it's going to end. We know what the resolution's going to be. The two of them have to resolve their inner conflict or whatever, but we have to first have this action climax that goes on for like 10 minutes of her running around the town trying and failing over and over again to get people to evacuate, and like all this stuff's happening, and I'm like, I kind of get it. It didn't need to be that long. And I had to pee so fucking bad by that point in the movie, I honestly thought I might die.
Oh, you missed the best part when you were peeing, is when she looks at her hand, because they wrote each other's names so they wouldn't forget. That's a big thing, that they forget the names for some fucking reason. She looks at her hand to see that if he wrote his name so she wouldn't forget, and instead of his name, he just wrote, "I love you."
I see.
And she has like a single tear, and she's like, "I can't remember your name this way, you lovable goof." And then that was beautiful. It was a beautiful scene.
That's
I
pretty
cried.
good.
I cried and jacked off in that 5 seconds while you were out of the room.
I'm mad that I missed that while I was peeing an epic torrent, a fucking tsunami of piss. Sorry if that's offensive. I know this is a Japanese.
I've been talking about jacking my dick this whole time, and peeing is offensive.
No, the tsunami.
Everybody pees. Not everybody jacks
the
their
tsunami
dick
was the
to a fucking movie. I don't fucking know about anime girls or some shit.
Fuck. So this movie, that part I thought went on too long, and then there's the end of the movie keeps going, but the other stuff was more interesting than that. Like the stuff that happens afterwards of them growing older and still not having found each other.
You know what else was a cool detail is how the grandma implies that this happened to her when she was a kid, so she knew when he was in her body, but then when he was in her body yelling at her dad, the dad also knew.
Right.
So it sort of implied that this was happening with her mom as well, and then he had that line when it was her flashback to when her mom was dying, and the dad said, "I couldn't save her," which makes me think that that's a subtle hint that some shit went down involving this particular superpower in the past. But they didn't hammer it home. They didn't beat me over the head with it. They let me make the connection in my own brain. And it was cool as shit.
That's an interesting theory. I wouldn't only because it's implied that the whole family's been through that. Yeah. And he was the father-in-law, so the mother would have been the one who was the time traveler, and her daughter's the one who's also in trouble. Maybe it's always the woman who's in trouble going down the family. Maybe the grandma got saved, the mom didn't, but the daughter did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we need some lore videos.
But that's just a theory.
Yeah, Vati Vidya needs to... Oh, give me that lore.
So yeah. All right. Is that all you want to say about the spoiler part?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. Well, I'll go back. We're back from spoilers. I'm gonna talk for a while about the director, just because I'm interested. I don't know if you give a fuck.
Quentin Tarantino got his start in a small Japanese fishing village.
Just like Wolverine.
Disowned by his family, cast out of the village for being born a white man.
So, this movie's directed by Makoto Shinkai. He got his start from directing a film called Voices of a Distant Star, which is 45 minutes long, and he made it entirely by himself on a Mac Pro, and that's what made the movie famous. And it was about this girl and guy who fall in love, and the girl is piloting a mecha and flying through the universe. And as she gets further out through space, because of time dilation or whatever, they've been texting each other the whole time that she's been out fighting this war against aliens, and the texts keep taking longer and longer to send.
Isn't
so
that just Gunbuster?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like the ending of Gunbuster, but expanded into a movie. But it's very amateurishly made because it's made by one guy on his computer. But because of that and how interesting the story was, it became a very famous film. So then he did The Place Promised in Our Early Days, which was boring as shit. Then he did 5 centimeters per second, which is this movie that's about this guy who falls in love with this girl, and they have this meeting, and then that's the last time they see each other. He moves out to the countryside, and the midsection of the movie is about him in the countryside. He moves back to the city, and he never sees her again. And it's just a movie about how relationships are fatalized by distance, and it's super sad, and everyone watches it to cry and get depressed. Then he made a couple shitty other movies, and then he made this one. Now, this movie is basically exactly the same as all his other films in that it involves delete. That was us indicating a part we cut out of the video. So anyways, this movie has a lot of the exact same story beats that have already happened in 5 centimeters per second in Voices of a Distant Star. But this movie is a lot better in every way. The cinematography is finally on point, because while this guy is known for his beautiful background art, I've always thought the cinematography in his movies sucked, the character design sucked, the animation always sucks. There's usually not much animation, it's usually just a bunch of shots of fucking pretty trains and shit. This movie was the first Makoto Shinkai film I've seen. I haven't seen Garden of Words, but this is the first one I saw where the character designs were good, the animation was good, the pacing was good, although I still think the climax was too long. And just the story was good. The writing was interesting. Like, it had a fucking plot as opposed to just being about characters being sad. And, like, the first scene in this movie, like, before the opening, before the OP, as it were, was like two characters saying all this like lofty esoteric dialogue, and I was really scared the whole movie would be like that, because 5 centimeters per second is all like that. But this is not. It starts off like that, but then the rest of the movie's normal, and it's coherent and straightforward, and I definitely think it's his best movie yet. I just also don't think it's that special, so I didn't think it was amazing. I would give it a decent 7.
And I'd give it, well, I said at the beginning I'd give it a 10 out of 10. Maybe I'd give it like a strong 9, but for all intents and purposes, it's a 10 out of 10 to me.
Right.
So I think it's a fantastic film, and everybody should see it, Pleeb, Weeb, or otherwise.
Yeah, this is definitely a film you could show your parents, your friends, anyone.
This is like a gateway film to turn your parents into weird otaku lollies.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think Girl Who Let Through Time might be a better gateway than this. Just because this movie does open up with a girl grabbing her own tits. And if your parents already think anime is just a perverted thing you watch for lollies, that scene won't
presumably
convince them.
your parents, if they have bared a child, they have touched tits.
They might be
unless your
Christian
parents are both
weirdos.
gay and you were born out of the butt. I don't know. Some babies are butt babies. I read that in a book.
That's it, folks. I think that's it. We both recommend this film overall.
Yes.
I recommend it. I don't think it's as good as the scores or the amount of money it's making would imply, but I mean, it's very much a popcorn film or a date film. It's totally like a normal...
a hole in the popcorn film, if you know what I mean.
Yeah!
Woo! So vote. This is the part where we tell you to vote. Who was the plebe and who was the weeb? You do that in the comments, I guess.
No, we're going to put a straw poll.
And a straw poll. We've got all the bases covered. First base, second base, third base, and fourth home run, which is butt sex. Because it's a date movie.
You know what I think I'll do? I think I'll put one poll that's who was the plebe and one poll that's who was the weeb. So there's a chance one of us could win both. Please, please.
Hi, your name is, I can't remember. Hi, your name is, I forgot. Hi, your name is, the plebe. Hi, your name is, the weeb. Hi, kids. Do you like my vids? Want to take a guided tour to a shore where the sun rises?